If I said the phrase, take two. If I said the phrase, "You stupid boy," you know exactly who I'm talking about, don't you? It is the delicious Captain Manwaring or Manwaring, depending on where you're from, played brilliantly, of course, by the wonderful Arthur Lowe. And now, of course, Arthur Lowe and Dad's Army was a huge favourite of our British monarchy. The Queen Mother would not go out or have anything booked when originally Dad's Army was broadcast in the late 1960s and the 1970s. Remember, this is pre-VHS and all that sort of stuff, so you only had one chance to watch it. For those that don't remember, Dad's Army was a brilliant sitcom, basically all about the Home Guard during the Second World War, with a wonderful cast of characters that made so many of us laugh, even though right through till today. It is one of the most respected and, more importantly, still watched sitcoms of the 20th, 21st century. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because its star, Arthur Lowe, truly, although he had the backing and absolute support of the British monarchy, always felt rather insecure, and so he had a secret sideline. As ever, let me explain. Hi, lovely to see you. Thank you so much. Now, did you like Dad's Army? Because I think many of us who watch this channel love the same sort of comedy, don't we? Everything from Dick Emery, Are You Being Served, It Ain't Half Hot Mum, Keeping Up Appearances, It's Bouquet, not Bucket. You just love all of those phrases, don't you? And if you hear it, it just makes you laugh for the day, doesn't it? That's the thing with Dad's Army. When I was growing up, I loved the Scottish man, we're all doomed. Do you remember? He was just brilliant, wasn't he? John Laurie. And you do come away thinking, why did you find that funny as a kid? But you do. Now, its main star, as I say, Arthur Lowe, was incredibly popular with the British monarchy. They loved him, and he was a very much well-loved actor. Something of a workaholic. Some people said he was difficult to deal with, but then again, he was carrying a lot of the show. But what was interesting was, long before, of course, Captain Manwaring or Mannering, he popped up as Leonard Swindley for 5 years plus in Coronation Street to great success, leaving on the 31st of May 1965 as his last sort of major appearance. But you see, Arthur was very concerned about being typecast and wondered whether, in fact, he could actually still create a career outside of, the sort of world of show business. By the way, we haven't had a wave, sorry. Are you all right? Sorry, I know I'm slacking, aren't I? Get so excited telling you these stories, you see. You get, track of time, isn't it? It's an age thing. It is an age thing, isn't it? That's the terrible thing. Have I got up? I must just break off. I woke up the other day, have you done this? And I thought it was Sunday and thought, brilliant, I can get a lie in. Realised it was Monday. Isn't that annoying? Has that happened to you? Ooh, furious when I realised, But there you go. Back as ever to your story. So Arthur Lowe, as I said, after being very successful as Leonard Swindley in Coronation Street, well, he had to come up with something else. And so what he decided to do was to become a theatrical agent. And the reason behind this was that he realised that his agent was making quite a bit of money out of him. So the Arthur Lowe Agency was born, and that was incorporated inside the infamous club that was visited by anybody who was anybody during the 1960s and late 50s, Bertie Green's Astor Club. We've told you about it before. Princess Margaret was a regular, the Craze, all sorts of skullduggery went on in there, but of course, all through the veneer of it being a wonderful nightclub. Now, Arthur, being very savvy about show business at this point, decided that he could provide some of the acts, the floor show entertainment. And to put it mildly, some of the floor show entertainment was what you might call rather risque, floor dancers, exotic dancers, that sort of thing. But Arthur's idea really was to just keep the churning over of an agency so that he could make some kind of percentage and not have to rush into acting jobs that he might not like. What truly happened, and I think this is fabulous, is that ran very successfully for a few years. Then what really happened was, of course, he got the big break that we all know and love him for in, of course, the wonderful Dad's Army. But then, as you can imagine, as that took off, and remember, when they first put that series out, it wasn't successful. It was in black and white. A lot of people weren't buying into it because it was on at the wrong time slot. So Arthur was very reluctant to let go of the agency. Finally, of course, success prevailed and it became a phenomenal success. What's interesting, though, is that many people were signed to Arthur Lowe's agency, and many, of course, went on to superstardom, but wanted to keep a distance because obviously, as you can imagine, Arthur now being a very successful actor, well, they all wanted parts in Dad's Army. That's how the acting profession works, right? Everybody taps on your shoulder and says, what about me? Remember me? So eventually he wound it down. But what's interesting is that Arthur became something of a superstar, all thanks to that show, including Richard Burton, who I mentioned before I was lucky enough to meet outside the Victoria Palace Theatre in the very heart of London. Now, Richard was such a fan of Dad's Army that in 1982, while making the TV sort of miniseries Wagner, he actually provided his own private plane to fly Arthur and his wife over to make a cameo appearance in that series. That was the power. Now, apparently, when the Queen and Arthur Lowe met, because they went along to the stage shows and stuff like that at the Victoria Palace, the Queen was desperate to know exactly whether the relationship between Sergeant Wilson and Captain Mainwaring had a friendship behind it. She loved that, apparently, that dynamic. And Arthur assured her that yes, they were true friends, literally off camera and on camera. Now, where they filmed the show in Thetford has now become still such a tourist attraction, and Jones's Butcher van is very much out there every year touring that particular area. It's funny to think, isn't it, though, that even at the very height of his success, Arthur Lowe believed that it could all end tomorrow, and so he kept his agency card just in case he'd ever have to go back to it. Thankfully for us, he never did. But what a success and what a legacy he left behind. And as I said, one of the royals' very favourite TV programmes. Apparently when it was on, the Queen Mother demanded entire silence and then promptly fell about laughing, as we all do. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.